Hello and welcome to part 2 in the PowerShell for Beginners series. Today we will discuss variables and functions on a beginner level. And learning what a variable and function is will start help you think in programming terms. For me, PowerShell was the first thing I learned, and later on it helped me getting started with Python and scratching the surface of other languages too. This is because most programming languages has elements such as variables, functions, classes, error catching, and so forth. So while two languages look different, you can still apply the same thinking in both. Taking the individual language traits into consideration, of course. Let's start with the variables. They are like a box that you fill with a value, such as numbers or plain text, and in other cases it can help to think about them like a label referring to something. To create a variable, you use the $sign directly followed by what you want to call the variable, such as $name. To then store the value, you follow up with equals, and in this case a name in quotes. Use double quotes for more flexibility, in case your value contains a variable in itself. Using single quotes would result in a literal word saying $sign variable, for example. Sometimes it can be good to force a variable to be of a certain type. For example, $sign number gets the value 1337 in this example, and is considered a number, and it's not contained within quotation marks. Use so-called casting to force the variable to be considered a string instead. A string is simply put text. In this example we have string within brackets to define the type of the variable, and then directly followed by $sign number and the value. Now the variable is considered a text saying 1337 as a word, not a numerical value. PowerShell is not case sensitive. This means that $cat with small letters and $cat with big letters will refer to the same thing. To get a value out of a variable, you just enter the name of the variable with a $sign before, and the console will return whatever the box, so to speak, is containing. A function is some actions that have been defined in advance that you run when the function is called. You call the function in the same way that you call a variable by entering its name. You can make them more advanced by adding parameters, which means that you can run the function with various options. But we will stick to the very basics here for this one. A function is created when you write the word function, followed by a name for the function, in this example get cookies, followed by curly brackets, and you put the code in between those brackets. We start by writing a function. The first action we store within this function is to create a variable containing your name. It does this by reading what you write in the console, and then you press enter. It then returns your name and lastly tells you the date of today, including time. A function is not run until you call it. You do this by referring to its name in the console and then pressing enter. Or if you have written a script, you simply include the function name somewhere in the document after you have written the function itself. We will look at this example here, and as you can see, I have given the function the name date. I've also included the name in the bottom, just to be able to call the function right away in my script. If you would be in the console, you just enter the name of the function and press enter. A function will remain in memory as long as the console is open. If you turn the console off, it will clear the memory, so to speak. Then you would have to rewrite your function. But most of the time you can access old entries by pushing your arrow key upward. And as we can see here in the example, you get to know the different components. We have a variable. We use a pre-built function, getDate, and we wrap it all up in our own function. And of course, there's so much more you can do. And think of things that you would like to do, search for it on the internet, and usually there are people who have published scripts already from which you can get inspiration. And without digging too deep into it, you could say that the difference between a commandlet, cmdlet, and a function is that the function is written in PowerShell language, while the commandlet is written in another language, usually C#, which then works inside of PowerShell. But for practical purposes, I usually think of them as the same thing. And that's it for this episode in the 5-part series about PowerShell for beginners. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you.